Tanya Engesether from The Graceful Leader is my guest today, and we had a good conversation. So I'm going to recap what we talked about because we kind of covered a few different topics. First, we talked about how organizing has helped her in her business and what that looks like and what she did, the most impactful parts of that. We also talked about, she's so gracious to share kind of her story. She works full-time as a leader in healthcare, and she shares how she found coaching and then now how she coaches leaders. She also gave tips. If you can relate to this, if you have a full-time job and you are trying to start or grow your coaching business, she gives efficiency tips, what she does to keep it all organized and running smoothly and get the most done in the time that she has. And then oddly, we end on my favorite Netflix show currently. We kind of end. It was funny. So make sure you listen to the end. It's not funny. I shouldn't say that. We were practically crying. So it was definitely not funny. And I love Tanya. She's just so down to earth and just open about everything. And maybe we bond because we're both from Minnesota. I don't know, but you're going to really enjoy it. And she has a free workshop coming up called the Time Management Makeover, 4 simple steps to create more time with less guilt. And it is Thursday, June 6th at 5 p.m. Central. So you can register for that by going to gracefilledleader.com/workshop. Okay, let's get into this conversation. Are you ready to work less, feel more organized and productive, streamline repetitive tasks, and implement systems that allow your coaching business to run smoothly even without you? If so, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Organized Coach Podcast, your go-to source for practical tips and solutions. I'm your host, Tracy Hoth, professional organizer, certified life coach, simplifying expert, and most of all, down-to-earth fellow coach just like you. No matter if you think you're missing the organizing gene, have ADHD, or just love anything organizing, I'm here to help you become an organized coach with a business that works for you. Pull up a seat and let's get started. If you are a coach who has a coaching business who also works part-time, full-time, if you're in leadership, if you have a full-time career, but you really want to have and grow your coaching business, you are going to love this conversation. I have Tanya Engesether here on the podcast. So welcome, Tanya.
Thank you so much, Tracy. It's great to be here.
Tell us what you do. Tell us more about who you are.
My name is Tanya, and actually I've worked in the healthcare industry for almost exactly 27 years. Actually, Sunday was my 27th anniversary of being hired at this organization. I'm a physical therapist by background, but for the last 17 of those 27 years, I've actually been in leadership roles, first as a frontline manager and more recently as a director over several service lines. And working in that industry and through COVID, it led me on another journey. And more recently, I'm actually also a certified Christian life coach, and I specialize in helping other Christian women leaders find better work-life balance and find freedom from people-pleasing and approval-seeking.
Oh my gosh. So first, can I just say, I don't know this for sure, but I think that people that are in corporate that want to, or in any job, I guess, but that want to grow their business might look at people that have a business and they might be so envious that they don't have to work. But when I hear you say you are a leader of all the services, like all physical, what kind of services?
Physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech language pathology, athletic training, strength and conditioning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like all of those, you are a director. Like I admire that so much. Like you have this career. It is just, I don't know. I just think about that. And maybe you're wishing you had this big growing business, but I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so important. You've done it. Like you've grown and you've used your skills and you're leading people. It's just cool.
Well, and it's really inspired the more recent work too, and it certainly gives me content. Oh, I forgot to say that. I'm also the host of the Grace-Filled Leader podcast. Again, one of my more recent adventures, but certainly my day job offers a lot of content for my podcast.
Yes. And we're going to talk about that too, just like different conversations, difficult conversations, and what you help women with specifically. But I want to kind of start with just where our paths crossed. We were in a program together where we didn't get to talk to each other at all, but I guess we saw each other across the room. And then you joined Organized Coach Academy. So I'm always curious to ask, like, what made you join the program?
Well, somehow I don't remember how, if I ran across you, or maybe I think I actually found your podcast first and started listening, because I always want to know more things about organizing and systemizing and just increasing efficiencies, considering all of the gigs that I have in my life. And I listened to your podcast and then heard you talk about the Organized Coach Academy. And it was one of those things where I know how to organize, right? But it's a little like my finally paying for personal training. I know how to exercise. I'm a physical therapist. I know how to do it, but I don't want to plan it. I just want somebody else to tell me what to do. I'm like, oh, this was perfect, because I really wanted to get more organization specifically around my coaching business and my workflows, because number one, I don't have a lot of capacity. My coaching business is still fairly new. So I wanted to get some structure and organization before I got too far down the road and developed bad or inefficient habits or processes. I thought it better to start, more foundational rather than do a whole bunch and have to figure out how to sort it out and declutter my processes later.
So very smart of you. To all you listeners who are out there that are new in your business, do it early. I just hear so many people say that over and over.
Yes. And what snagged me was your digital files organization, which we'll probably get to that, but that was oh my gosh, again, theoretically I know how to organize, but I just need somebody to just tell me what to do, where to put it, what it looks like for them so that I can just replicate it.
Yes, I agree with that too, but I've never had anybody really say it like that, where you just want someone, well, I always want this, and it makes it more fun. If I'm going to work on a skill or do something, I want to just have someone teach me a way that works rather than waste all this time trying to figure it out.
Yes.
Yeah. And we know a lot of us, now some of us don't have the skills, or maybe we're missing some executive functioning skills that are really important, but a lot of us know what to do, but we just want that accountability. We want someone to show us. Oh, and the other thing I was thinking is I love seeing behind the scenes. Like I still want to see other people's businesses behind the scenes that sound like they have all these things in order, and just keep learning.
Yes. Well, and that's one thing that stands out to me about you is I feel like you're very generous about just showing us behind the scenes. Like when you learn something that works for you, you're so great about just being willing to share it. You're not just like trying to keep it all secret to yourself. And you know what I mean? I just feel like you're very generous that way with knowledge and sharing tips and tricks.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I feel like I've been working a lot on abundance and trying to be that way. And I notice it in people if they're like, oh, you can't use that. Oh, you can't do that. Be careful, versus just abundant and free. It just is so fun to be around people like that. What do you think from Organized Coach Academy you took away from that, or you implemented, or what do you think was your favorite part?
Probably my biggest takeaways or favorite parts were really being intentional about thinking about and documenting systems and processes, like getting it out of my head and onto paper, so to say, to actually have a system that is easy to replicate or teach someone else, that I'm not having to rely on my memory every time I go to do that thing. If it's not an everyday thing, maybe it's a once a month thing or once a quarter thing, how much time I otherwise would waste trying to remember how I did everything. So it was intentionally creating systems. The digital file organization for sure was a lifesaver, because I found that I really just find things a lot more quickly, which, time is money, so to speak. And really getting more into Google. I had hardly used Google before. Your business dashboard, that actually ding 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 was probably the number one. What's the theory of one or the something of one, you say?
Yeah, the
And
wonderful one or the power of one. Yeah.
the power of one, yeah. And your business dashboard is such a great place now to literally just put everything that, whether it's to link to something else, it's like the one-stop shop. It has improved my efficiency so much.
That is so good. All of those.
Yeah, that was a lot. But I mean, there's even more. But yeah, those really stand out. The business dashboard, for sure, for sure. And just the systems and you make it simpler too than a lot of other people. Like you make it it works and it's simple.
Yeah. So two things. The Google, a lot of people are using Google. They want to use Google, the Google suite of things, or they're using it because other people are using it. And so they need to be able to use it, but they hate it because,
Yes.
and I think I am the same way until I learned some secrets. I learned how to go into it, how
Right.
to have the shortcuts saved in files that make sense in your mind instead of sifting through all of this stuff. So a lot of those things now, I love it because I know those things, and we do that on the calls too. Like if someone says, I don't know, I don't like, and I'm like, oh, but do you know that if you go in this way, you'll never have to see that and you'll never have to be confused. But it's little tricks like that, I think are fun sharing too. And I like learning from other people like that too. Just show me what you did there.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have so much of that, like just so many little nuggets of gold. And even that I could color code my files and how to name things, that's so many things that you just were so helpful.
Good. And if anybody's wondering, the business dashboard is only available in Organized Coach Academy. So
Mm.
if you join, that's where you get it. Okay, then, well, is there anything you would say if someone was considering?
I would say consider no more, just do it. I mean, honestly, it is number one, it's a reasonable time investment. Like I don't feel like you ask too much of us in terms of homework, and we just really work things out together. And its value is far more than the investment that you make. So I would just 100% it's worth it in terms of how organized and more efficient you'll be. It'll save you time and money right away.
Yeah.
It
And it's interesting. I'm thinking that you are saying that as a person that works full time and whose husband travels every weekend and you have to travel with him,
is.
whatever. But
Yeah.
that you're saying it wasn't too much of a time investment, but then on the same hand, it's like it's going to save you so much time and make you more efficient. So that's what it's kind of fun hearing you say that.
Yeah. I mean, you just set it up really well where, you can access the things as you do them and go back to it. Some of the stuff I didn't implement fully maybe while we were working through the program, but it was there to go back to and start using it as I got other pieces in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Okay. Well, then what I had did after, because I went through it a couple rounds live with people. And then what I did was offered a little small group mastermind and I called it Organized to Profit. And you decided to keep working with me through that. So tell me what your thought process was there.
Yeah. So it took me a minute because again, it's like, okay, I am sort of I'm learning all the time. Like I tend to just probably get into too many things, but I was really at a point of not knowing, well, should I invest in another program or should I just, start doing stuff on my own? But so I took a minute, but just knowing how you communicate things, how you set things up, how you deliver your resources and your product essentially, I knew that my brain worked with how you coach.
Mm.
And so I definitely wanted to get further ahead in my coaching business. So I dove in, and it's been such a blessing because it's a very intimate group. And so there's a lot of learning together. And it was again only on a deeper level, that accountability partner for me. So it's like things that are scary to me to think about doing on my own, the Organize a Profit has really helped me. Just, you've helped me just be brave and courageous, and it doesn't need to be perfect, just do it. Like, these are the pieces, let's talk through breaking it down so that it's not overwhelming. Let's do this step, then this step. So it really helped me. I was avoiding doing a live launch. Like, I knew I needed to do it, and I just had been putting it off because I was kind of terrified. And so that gave me the support and the resources and the encouragement to just kind of dive in and do a live launch.
Yeah. Well, in one of the things we did, which makes me so excited, is in that first group, it was just you and Cynthia, and the two of you kind of were working through things at the same time, as far as creating a workshop or a class that you were going to teach, and then you were going to launch one-on-one coaching. And I loved when through that process, you created your own intellectual property and how you teach and structure your program.
Yes.
And that became really clear just working through creating a webinar or a workshop, whatever. I don't even know what you called yours.
And I feel like it really helped me almost even get more organized in my head, or more clear on my own messaging, just doing that work of building that workshop and then getting your eyes on it. And that's one thing too, like, you're very honest with your feedback, but in such a grace-giving and loving way. Like, it's very encouraging, but if it's like, oh, this is not so great, you're going to kind of tell me that it's not so great, or like, oh, you've never said that, but
because you're so great.
oh yeah, so nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's really helped me just continue to build confidence and clarity around even my own services and my own messaging and the people that I serve.
Yeah. And we talked about different marketing aspects. You've done a live course, you've launched it, you've launched one-on-one, and now you've scheduled to do your course again, your class. What are you calling it? A workshop or a class?
I call it a workshop. Yeah,
Okay,
the time
so
management takeover.
yes, and your workshop is just in like 2 days from when this is going to come out, I think. So tell us about your workshop. What's it help people do?
So my workshop is called the Time Management Makeover. It's a free workshop where I teach you 4 simple steps to create more time with less guilt. So I go through my 4-step process of creating more time without the guilt, because most of the people that I serve tend to be that people pleaser, approval seeker. So they have guilt when they try to set boundaries with their time.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads perfectly then into, but we'll include the link in the show notes. So go sign up for Tanya's workshop, but it leads kind of into your story. So that was you were working full time, feeling a lot of guilt because you were a people pleaser. Is that how you would tell the story?
Well, sorry, how much time do we have? So kind of, yes. Well, all my life, for whatever reason, however I interpreted my life and circumstances, from the time I can remember, I've been a very anxious person, always seeking approval, or kind of being a people pleaser, raised to be a good girl and get good grades and make a good impression. I've always worked hard. We came from very, very humble roots. I'm talking, we didn't even have running water until I was 7 years old. So we just, it was like, you work hard for what you get. And over time, I just found that I struggled to say no to people. I thought, I always worried about what people thought of me. Would they think I was a bad person? Did I say something stupid? Did they think this? I just walked through life worrying about what people thought of me. And as I became a leader, I see myself as a servant leader, which is great. I think I'm very relational. I've always believed in serving my people well, and I'm never going to ask somebody to do something I haven't done at least twice over. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that's key to building trust and relationship with your team so that they truly want to follow you, not just do what you tell them to do. Fast forward into COVID, and it was this just, I mean, the whole world. It was a major change just for the world and for life ever after. But what happened was, working in healthcare, we didn't get to shut down and shelter in place. Instead, you know, I supervise therapists for the most part, and we had to essentially make our people do things that they were not accustomed to doing, roles that they weren't necessarily comfortable with. And there was a wide range of emotions that came from that. I mean, some were just angry. And I found myself, it was a really difficult time, both in what we saw, what we did, how people felt about it. And we also started to see this kind of change. I think just in general, people were burning out. You know, you've probably seen or heard of just kind of the mass resignation from the workforce. You know, and healthcare is an industry that was really hit, where just people, I think, had compassion fatigue and burnout, and we lost people. So almost coming out of the pandemic has become harder than in it in a lot of ways, because it's hard to find people that want to work in healthcare. And it seems that people have shifted a bit in terms of their tolerance for discomfort and their desire to serve. Like, just something flipped there, that leadership looks far different in the last several years than it did in the years previous to that. Well, anyway, because of all that, you know, my people were feeling, and I was internalizing so much of that when I really shouldn't have. I mean, it was sort of normal human reactions, and I was taking it on too personally, worrying about what they thought. Did they think I was a bad leader? Was this forever going to change who they saw me as in terms of as a leader? All of that. And I started to have panic attacks and have anxiety, where I just was dreading coming through the door. I was looking for an exit strategy from my role, and I'd not really experienced that level of burnout, I guess, in my career before. And that led me on a personal journey, because I knew that obviously for 20 plus years, I had been drawing so much of my own value from what other people thought or said about me. I was drawing my value from what I achieved or what my team thought of me, so I was seeking my validation externally instead of internally. And so when that failed me, so to say, and like my people were struggling, and, you know, it seemed like harder to meet expectations, it was just kind of a time that I just had to surrender all of that, because I just didn't know how to keep showing up and be able to kind of survive that. So I just started a lot of work, and a lot of internal and spiritual work, to kind of help myself. And how I did that was through Christian life coaching. And what happened was, I really had to do the inner work of receiving God's grace and truly developing an understanding and a heart knowledge of who I was, who I am in Christ, so that I didn't need the approval of others to determine my value. And once I began to understand that, and that I'm significant just because I'm His, not for what I accomplish or what other people think of me, it truly changed how I'm able to walk through the door every day. And I began to learn how to set boundaries for myself in a grace-giving way. And as I did that, and as I practice it, I started to see that, well, people will respect my boundaries. If I teach them how to treat me, for the most part, people will start to respect that. And I certainly was developing more respect for myself. And through that, just how my manner of being in the world was transformed, because truly I was being transformed from the inside out. And I just wanted to share that, because I was seeing people all around me struggling, like other women in leadership, just struggling with just feeling like they can't meet expectations. And it just felt like a grind and burnout and all the things. And saying yes to too many things to where they didn't feel like they had any time for themselves or their family. And that's how I felt. I walked around guilty because I spent so much of my energy on my work that my family is what sacrificed. For years, my family got the least of me in many ways because I was giving so much to my work. And then here I was, experienced that, well, why did I invest so much in myself when that resource, quote, failed me when it came to, in a really hard thing? I didn't feel like I was getting from it what I thought I should. I've done a lot of work to understand that I was taking that far too personally and all of that. But I just needed to figure out how to have better work-life balance for myself and set boundaries. And as I found freedom, I wanted to share that with other women. And so that's what led to me wanting to get certified as a Christian life coach, because I knew the transformation that I'd experienced. I wanted to be able to share that with other women. So the podcast was born and the Christian life coaching business was born, truly as another avenue of wanting to serve women, because once you feel that feeling, that peace and that joy that comes from that heart knowledge, you want to tell the world, right? So like most of us, often our purpose work comes as a result of our own struggle and the victory that comes out of that struggle. So I'm sorry that wasn't concise at all.
Oh, that was so beautiful. And I know that people are going to be listening. Women are going to be listening to this, and you just told it so perfectly. Like literally, they're going to be so encouraged that there's hope
Yeah.
and that there is answers that they can. I mean, that's what's so great about coaching. Like you searched it out and found someone that helped you, and now you're doing that for other people.
Yeah. And I mean, the funny thing is I feel like it blesses me far more than it blesses the person that I'm serving. Like it energizes me and it just lights me up to just see people kind of have a new awareness or a new understanding, or just that freedom that comes with really just realizing that life can look different just because of how we choose to experience it, really.
So you are working with leaders, women who are leaders. And I love how you talked about the Christian aspect of it. I mean, that's going to have a big effect once they understand that knowledge of who they are and they quit giving away that to their accomplishments or to what other people think. But then also, you coach people on things like time management, your emotions, and the guilt feelings that you have. And even on, I know one time you were talking about having difficult conversations and how you love like
Yes.
helping leaders learn
Yes.
how to do that or work through that. How would you say it?
Yeah, I love helping coach people and sort of almost give them scripts to help them navigate difficult conversations in a grace-giving way. So there's just kind of a technique to, even if it's like information the person's not going to appreciate necessarily, or it's a difficult conversation, there's a way to do it so that they still feel seen, heard, and valued, and they're able to receive that message because they can see the heart with which it was delivered. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
just love helping people navigate communication, because I
Yes.
mean, communication will make you or break you as a leader. Like it is, and boy, I've seen both directions of that, and it's devastating when it goes the wrong way.
Well, and I love as I think about who I would want to have as a coach. And what you said earlier about my programs is that you like you can have what I have. You can use.
Right.
I give you the dashboard. Same thing with you. You're saying like I give you scripts. I will
Yeah.
give you the things that you need to be a better leader, but then also we'll do the coaching or the mindset work around it and the exercises that help you understand it better. So
Right.
that's good. Anything else you want to share about that?
Well, as you were talking, it led me to thinking that really there's two components sort of to that idea of time management and work-life balance, in that it's not, yes, some of it's the tactical, practical, like, time blocking, blah, 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 organizing your time, sifting through what shouldn't be on your calendar. But there's that sort of spiritual, mental, emotional component of truly understanding, like for me, developing that heart knowledge of who I am and truly understanding that I can surrender all of this crap. Like I don't have to carry the burden alone. I can be like, Jesus, just take the wheel because I'm tired, And understanding that kind of the source of my identity and my value, when it's now removed from what will people think of me or how do I get their approval, when it's no longer dependent on that, it's much easier to kind of shut work off and leave work at work because you're not carrying that mental and emotional baggage, which depletes you, because there's so much more to, I found, especially in leadership, it's not just physically, and for me, that's not even the worst part of the job. It's not the physical, what you have to do. It's really the burden or the baggage that can come with all the people aspects. That leading people is challenging, so to not take it home with you every day is challenging. So helping people to release that burden, just that in itself creates better work-life balance. I don't know if that made sense, but
Yes, totally made sense. And I love just all these examples of how if someone gets coaching with you that is a leader that is struggling, they maybe want to quit or they're feeling guilty all the time or they are overcommitting themselves or worried about what other people think, that there is answers for that, and that's what you would help them with.
yeah, for sure.
So good. Okay, then makes me think of the leader out there or coach out there who is working full time and wants to grow their business. So you are doing that and you started a podcast. So just any tips that you would give people on how to do all that?
Well, much like every other aspect of learning time management and work-life balance, it really comes down to, for me, it's understanding the priorities, like the what you have to do. Like for me, that what I have to do is I need to keep showing up. So I need to keep showing up for my podcast. So far I haven't missed doing an
Yay.
episode, so I need to show up for my people. And that's the basic. If I can get nothing else done, I need to show up. So it's a matter of determining what are really those core priorities when it comes to the podcasting or the coaching. And I have to block, or I have to make space and block time for those core things. And then as I get a process around that, then I can look, okay, what's the next piece that I can take to start to grow my reach or grow my business, and then add that in. So it's a little bit like stacking things as I have capacity. And I really have to work hard at not comparing myself to someone else, because there are a lot of people that coaching is their full-time job. They don't have a full-time career outside of it. And I'll think like, oh gosh, well, I don't have that many downloads or blah, blah, blah. And I just can't do that. I have to look at comparing myself to myself. Like, am I
Yes.
doing better today than I was yesterday? Well, heck, what I've accomplished in the last year, I never would have thought would have had a podcast ever in my life. I mean, just all that I've learned and all that I've done while working a full-time job and being my husband's co-laborer on an island in Canada every weekend. It's sort of amazing, like,
It
hey,
is
I can do that.
amazing.
Yeah. So
Yes,
prioritizing is key. Yeah.
well, I like how you said it too. You first decide what the basics, like what you have to get done, make them efficient,
Yes.
document the system around them, and then look at the next thing. So I think about you, like podcast obviously is first to show up, to have your podcast out there, to be making offers.
Right. And so I have a system, and I use a electronic project management system where I kind of put my systems in there, and I can move my task cards to when I've done this piece of my production. So I do my process the same way every time. And as I've done that, I've gotten faster at doing it. It doesn't take me as long to produce a podcast episode. And now I have sort of my social media posts, the way that I do that, and I schedule them. It's the same process every time. So I've just
That's
gotten more
awesome.
efficient with
And
my,
wait, and you use Meister Task, right?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you like it?
I do like it. Like it's visually appealing to me and
Colorful.
it works
Yeah.
my brain.
We're gonna
Yeah.
need to, I'm like, I want to have you do a little tutorial and we'll add it like as a bonus in Organized Coach Academy. That's what
Ooh.
I think that would be so fun because you've done it. Like you are doing it, just you saying that. Okay. And then the next thing after that. So your podcast and then your social posts. What else do you have?
So my key things now is I have my podcast episode, my social posts where I repurpose as much as I can across the platforms that I use,
Mm-hmm.
a weekly newsletter. That's the main things. Like that's the things I consider core, have to do them. You-
Right.
And then I add in there, pitching to other podcasts or things like that. And then I have like, depending on the week of the month, I have a different project, so to say, that I do for week one versus week two. Like week one might be kind of business cleanup or make sure I've recorded my income and expenses. And week two might be content planning. And week three, and I've turned, those are task cards for me that I then just move over to the to-do column. And then I can move it along as I'm making progress with, and I can check it off as completed once I do it. And it's so, I don't know, it feels good to just click it as complete.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun that you do it, that you actually are doing that.
Yeah.
And then I know in Organized to Profit, we've been talking about, okay, what's next as far as just those are your basics and then marketing tasks. Like maybe you want to start being more active on LinkedIn or pitching to more podcasts or
Right.
like just those. So do you add those things to your project management thing too?
Yes. So now, for example, I hadn't been doing LinkedIn before, and now I've added that as one of my social media columns where I take my episode card where I have my checklist of what has to be done in regard to that episode. And okay, I did my Facebook. I move it to the column that needs to be done. I kind of slide it over, and now LinkedIn is one of my things, and I basically repurpose my Facebook posts for
Right.
link. Same thing with my weekly newsletter. That's a column. So if I've done all the other things, but I haven't composed my weekly newsletter, I move my task card into that column like it's still a to-do. So it's my weekly cockpit kind of has the progression from what I have to do, making progress on it, it's completed. Anyway, I just kind of move it from column to column as I work through the tasks.
That's what, like when you want to hire someone to help you do something, you want someone that's done it. So I just love that you shared how your system is, that it works and you do it. Is there ever days like times you don't do it?
Well,
I'm supposed to
sometimes,
ask
let's
that
be real.
question.
Let's be real, right? Like my life just sometimes it just all falls apart. And the only thing, I mean, and this will be a difficult season, but as a leader, I mean, a 40-hour week is usually a short week. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's just like I've got nothing in me when I get home in the evening. So I have to some degree, I have to use my system to do the bare basics. And if the bare basic is just getting my podcast episode out, like I know at least I've done that. I don't need to look in my system, my project management system to know to do that.
Hmm.
And I've done that same system so many times, I wouldn't necessarily need to go look at it to know what I need to do. So I need to be in it less than I used to, but it's there because now I can build on my systems and the newer things that I add, that's where I need my visual cues a little bit more like, oh, yep, oh, I haven't done LinkedIn yet, or you know what I mean? Oh, I haven't done
Yeah.
my podcast pitching yet. And
Oh my gosh, I'm so impressed.
well, that's kind. I always think that about you.
I am totally impressed. We're doing that. We're putting that example or tutorial or whatever in Organized Coach Academy. I
Yeah.
love adding little bonuses. Like, I think that would be so useful for all of us to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's great.
So, anything else? We better wrap up. Anything else that you think? I love that example of systems. That's going to help someone.
Yes.
Anything else? I mean, you've given other examples too, but anything else you want to share?
So one of the things that probably comes out the most for me, and if I were gonna say like the number one mistake people make, like the people that are overwhelmed, have too much on their plate that I work with anyway, the biggest mistake I see people making is they take on burdens and assignments that were never meant for them to carry. I see it almost like being a Christian is great, but there's a degree to which sometimes we can get ourselves confused, because if something seems like a God honoring, a good thing to do, those of us that attend toward people pleasing anyway, oh, well, this is a good thing and it's a God honoring type of thing. I should say yes, even though like, it kind of makes me want to throw up because I'm so busy already, but it's a good thing to do, so I probably should do it. Not every assignment that is God honoring is God's assignment for you. You know what I mean?
Mm,
By you saying yes and maybe not being able to give it your best yes, you're taking that away from someone else who maybe could have given it their best yes, and you've now decreased your capacity to give everything your best. So I found that I've really had to work with people on sifting and purging, like you talk about, kind of sorting and purging which things are actually intended to be my assignments and which things really don't align with my priorities and my core values. So the biggest mistake people make is saying yes to too many things just because it's a good thing or a good opportunity. It might not be the opportunity right now or intended for you.
mm-hmm. And I can see how valuable having a coach to talk that through,
Yeah.
to see where your motive is coming from in that. And
Mhm.
almost, I mean, I see this with organizing too, but almost permission
Yes.
in the beginning to say no, and then you begin to develop that skill of giving yourself permission, but just that approval, like, okay, yes.
Right. And when we're in it, we get so confused because we're attached to all of our emotions and our thought patterns and whatever messages we've carried our whole lives. I have sort of this spidey sense, like I can literally feel, even if I'm doing it virtually, I can feel the energy that's coming from someone. If they just talk about their list of things that they're saying yes to or they're doing, I can tell by their energy which things align with their passions and priorities and which things are the shoulds they're just doing because either they're fearing missing out on the praise from doing the thing, or
Mm.
the fear of missing out, or what will people think if I say no. So that's been really fun to just help people even understand their own energy that will give them the answers they need when it comes to filtering things off of their plate or off of their schedule.
To have someone witness you like that is super helpful,
Yeah.
right? Almost invaluable to being able to work through those priorities, things you need to do, shoulds, time management, like being a better
Yeah.
leader type thing.
Right. And that you're worth it. Like you're worth prioritizing yourself, your passions, your needs. Yeah.
So good. Okay, Tanya. So your workshop's coming up. Tell us where we can sign up for that.
You can sign up for my free workshop happening June 6th if you go to gracefilledleader.com/workshop.
Well, that's easy.
Yeah.
Grace-filled leader. I love that. Okay, and then how does someone reach out to you if they want to work with you for coaching?
You can grab a free consult call with me if you go to gracefilledleader.com/work with me. So
I
hopefully
love
that's common sense first. Workshop or work with me.
one of those two. That makes it so easy. And then your podcast, the Grace-filled Leader podcast.
Yep, the grace-filled leader. That's right.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much. This has
Thank
been
you. This was
really,
so
really
fun.
good. I love hearing your story. I just love how you share that. It's so hope filled. Oh,
Oh,
and we just watched Lenox Hill on Netflix. I always like people to give me recommendations, but have you seen it?
no. Is it
Oh,
good?
yeah, it's in
Okay.
a hospital in New York, and
Okay.
it's just like shows us what happens.
Mhm.
But the last episode of that, it's like a 8 episode season or something. And the last episode was during COVID, and it just gave me so much insight in what you went through. So the whole time you were talking about it, I felt like now I understand just
Yeah,
what healthcare workers went through. I mean, I've seen stuff, but watching that show and you just become to love the doctors and the the people that they're featuring in the series. And then you see what they went through and
yeah, I mean, sorry, I just got goosebumps because at the time I also supervised a group of nurses that had been rehab nurses, and they actually shut down our rehab unit to turn it into the COVID unit to prepare for when we had a surge. And all of the, kind of isolation and infection control processes were such that you have COVID patients, they couldn't get visitors. So these nurses, they watched people die, and they were the people that sat with them as they, like they were their person. And so while it was really hard to watch, it was also really a blessing to see how grateful people were to not have to be alone during that. And it was probably the hardest thing I've ever gone to in my career, but in a way it was like the biggest blessing, because truly it a pandemic is like a microscope on a person's soul, because it will show you who people are at their core in terms of just the heart they have to serve other people or not. You know what I
yes.
mean? While it was terrible, I'm really grateful for it too, because you just see a whole nother picture of, you don't know what you're capable
Humanity.
of, really, a whole nother picture of humanity. And
Yeah.
sometimes it was really discouraging, and sometimes it was really encouraging. And
Yeah.
we just had to
I
come together to get the work done and help the people.
yeah. Well, that's kind of what the show showed also in the doctors are like calling the family members,
Mhm.
FaceTiming them and
Yes.
just heartbreaking. But I through my son's accident, that was the one thing that literally stood out is just the amazing heart that people have. And they're
Mhm.
so willing to come together and fight for you or help you, give to you, whatever that takes. I mean, that part of it's so beautiful. So I get what you're saying there. But okay, how'd we end on this?
Yeah, sorry.
We're
I'm
all
like, oh God,
crying.
that could turn into hours of conversation.
Okay.
Start crying, yeah.
But thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Tracy. This is a blessing, really.
Wait, if you're finding this podcast useful, you must check out the Organized Coach Academy. It's my course where I walk you through every step to get your business organized, to get yourself organized, to save money and time, to prepare to hire someone, to do all the things that you want to do in your business with ease. Check that out at simplysquaredaway.com/OCA. Also, I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but I would love it. It's my way of knowing that you're enjoying the podcast if you leave a written review. I have lots of freebies for you. They're linked in the show notes. You can find them in my bio on Instagram at Tracy Hoth. And until next week, have a beautiful day.